Thank you for joining us here today for episode 2 of the Spotlights podcast here for the NCHS Courant. I'm Valentina Fuentes, a story editor, and joining me today is a very special guest who has quite literally reached for the stars, Michael Telesco. He's a senior here at NCHS, recently featured as one of the 18 under 18 on the Bedford and New Canaan magazine, and recognized as one of the youngest people ever to discover a nebula. He's an award-winning astrophotographer and active researcher and one of the students behind the astronomy club here at NCHS. We are so excited to have him with us. Michael, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's just start right off with what first got you into astronomy.
Yeah, so as a kid, I think I was always interested in astronomy, the stars. I used to watch a lot of YouTube videos, but I was not really actionable. It was just something that I was curious about and interested in. And I think the first time I was realized that's something that's really I found really interesting was in the Florida Keys. It was February, I think it was 2023, February break, and Florida Keys there's no light pollution, so it's very dark skies. It was like a starlit sky, pretty much just blanketed with stars. And I was looking around and I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I was literally I was starstruck. And so ever since then, that night I looked at how I could take pictures of it, how I could capture what I saw. And so it kind of bridged me into the world of astrophotography, which opened up my eyes even more to astronomy.
Awesome. And as that fascination grew, I assume your equipment and projects started to evolve too. So when you first started exploring astronomy, what were your early setups or projects like compared to what you use now?
Yeah, so the early setup was literally just my mom's camera and a very basic telescope star tracker. Basically, for astrophotography, one of the main things is, our Earth rotates, so the stars move, across the night. So we need something that'll counteract that rotation, and that's what a telescope mount does. So I had a very basic, very starter telescope mount, and literally just my mom's camera and lens. And so, that first night was definitely my worst picture, but it's what started it all. And now, you accumulate more and more. As you start to feel more limited than with what you have, you start to accumulate more stuff. So, then went to my first telescope, went to my first real, equatorial mount, first dedicated astronomy camera, and then eventually to remote observatories that are placed in, places that are the best for taking pictures of our sky.
Awesome. So you've definitely been through a lot of progress, and you've become one of the youngest people to discover a new nebula. So how did that discovery come about, and what's something you can tell us about that?
Yeah, so I think last year I started to, see a lot of people discovering new things and, amateurs around the world that are making these new discoveries and contributing to science. And so I really wanted to engage in that. And, while I love taking pictures of known objects, going exploring for the unknown is super exciting. And so I started I started to begin my journey of looking for something new. And that comes with what's called surveying of the night sky. So usually with your telescope, instead of pointing it at something that's known, you'll point it at something that's unknown and hope that something's there pretty much. And with a lot of exposure time, just meaning, collecting as much light from that part of the sky over the course of maybe a couple nights, you can check and see if there's anything that hasn't been there before. And specifically, it's a little bit technical, but most of the discoveries for modern day astronomers are imaged in a specific wavelength of light. And it's what's called oxygen-3. It's ionized oxygen. And it's one of the best ways to discover new things because it's been a very largely unexplored domain for many years until the rise of amateur astrophotography. And so when you survey with oxygen-3, you have the highest probability of finding something new, and particularly a planetary nebula because they emit strongly in oxygen-3. And so you can, conduct surveys of different parts of the night sky in that wavelength. And along with using your own telescope, you can also use observatory data. So I was looking at a lot of observatory data online, scanning for things that maybe were misidentified or haven't been identified before. And if I did see something like that, I would take pictures with my telescope for follow-up observation. Yeah.
Wow. So that moment like that is just so important and can definitely change how you think about science. So how has your perspective on space or science changed as we've gained more experience, especially through that discovery?
Yeah, I think I realized that, there's really never been a better time to study astronomy. It's been rising in a lot of different domains, and we're really on the, frontier of technology where we have the ability to, make big discoveries in the coming years. And so I think even my small discovery just signifies that even at a young age, with the technology we have now, you can do so much. And so again, I just realized that, science is the perfect time to study astronomy and yeah.
Awesome. What has been one of your biggest challenges in astronomy and your journey so far that you could tell us?
Yeah, I would say like astrophotography in general, like starting out, I used to be like kind of impatient. I'd get really flustered like super easily. And so in the beginning, there were many, many nights where you get nothing out of it pretty much. And it seemed like there was always new issues like every single night. And many nights, you want to quit. But the reward of seeing, these pictures that were taken in your backyard after, all the struggle and the strife that you went through is like super rewarding. And so I think that is sort of what kept me going. And so I'd say overall that challenge, it was a lasting challenge. It was probably like the first year was a lot of ups and downs. But that was probably the biggest challenge. And it really taught me a lot. I think I've become much more patient, and I guess just learning that barriers are barriers for a reason, and learning how to like overcome them better. Yeah.
Awesome. So through all that perseverance, I assume that could have motivated you to become the person that's behind the astronomy and astrophysics club here at New Canaan High School. So what inspired you to start sharing your passion with others, through those challenges and the barriers we talked about?
Yeah, so before the astronomy astrophysics, it was sort of just like space club. I wasn't in it that freshman year. I don't really know what we did. But I guess, you want to give that opportunity to, expand, my excitement to others. And, you really become obsessed with the feeling of translating your excitement and your passion and seeing other people feel that same spark. And so, I wanted to bring that, especially like the idea of like research. So we did a lot of research those first couple of years. Last year we sent something into space, which was really cool. And we were able to conduct research. So it was really fun. And the club right now is mostly seniors. So if there's any underclassmen, please join. Unfortunately, we're not doing any big projects this year, but we're going to be focusing more on outreach, stargazing, maybe some dome events. But that's kind of what we've been doing.
Awesome, absolutely. And speaking of community, you're also involved with Dark Sky International Connecticut. So you've talked about light pollution and how it's an important issue. So what can people do to help, and maybe you can tell us more about that?
Yeah, so light pollution, it's kind of like the silent killer. You wouldn't expect light to be this big issue, but light kills a lot of wildlife, kills a lot of migrating birds, messes up your circadian rhythm and a lot of other things. And so it's important to me, I think, because, it's not only just astronomy it's affecting, but it's affecting, us, it's affecting wildlife. And so the biggest thing is, to become a member of Dark Sky International, or, just be more cognizant of your light usage. If you have backyard lights that point straight up in the night sky, or super bright floodlights that aren't covered, little changes like that can make a big impact. So on the short term, that would be the things you can do.
And going back to images and astrophotography, do you think there's an image or a discovery that you feel especially connected to, and why?
Yeah. I think, the discovery, obviously it's connecting. I feel connected to it in a personal way because, it's the first time it's been uncovered, I guess. But I'd say, honestly, the image that I feel the most connected to is probably like my first image. It wasn't very good, and it's just, I look back on it and it's far from perfect, but it was really that image that like catalyzed it all. And so as much as it wasn't that great, I remember feeling in that moment that it was like amazing, and I couldn't believe I had taken that photo. But I know it really puts into perspective, like the journey I've went through and just remembering where I started. So I think that image is very impactful.
Yeah, and you obviously went through such a long journey. And I'd assume that capturing images like that takes a lot of time. So how do you manage to balance school, research, and all those photography sessions?
Yeah, so it's tricky. But, if you really love it, you always find time for it. And so, and especially because astrophotography is at night. And typically, I don't know if anyone here really wants to be studying late at night sometimes. So it's a great way to just, if you feel like you're prepared enough, I'll usually try and prepare as much as I can earlier in the day so I can just, go outside in the night sky and take pictures, whether it's in my backyard or it's at my remote observatory. And research is another layer on top of that. And, you find time for that during the day when you can. But ideally, I'll try and be productive and get my schoolwork done soon so I can focus on the things that I find really fun.
Yeah, and how many times do you take pictures like in a week, and tell us more about the observatory you have?
Yeah, so sophomore year, I was much more of a, I actually didn't have a remote observatory, so I was much more of a backyard astrophotographer. So when the skies were clear in New Canaan, I would usually image even if there was a bright moon. But I would say like through junior year and senior year, and that's those summers, I would say I spend less time in the backyard, mostly because backyard astrophotography is much more of a commitment, especially during junior year. Everything was super busy. So if it was a really clear night and it was moonless, I'd usually image. But for the most part, it was through my remote observatory that was in Texas. And that's it's fairly automated. I've made a pretty automated script for it. So you click a few buttons, choose what you want to image, and it'll just go by itself. And so it's much less of a time commitment, and you still get the data, you still get the pictures, and there's also way more clear skies there. So I'd say I image in Texas at least 2-3 times a week, collecting data for the most part.
Wow. Through all these accomplishments already, it only really makes sense to look towards the horizon. So what do you have? Do you have a dream project or goal in astronomy that you wish to accomplish in the next couple of years?
Yeah. So I would say my research has been focused on what are called exoplanets, just planets that orbit outside of our solar system. And so for me, I find them incredibly interesting because, for a lot of astronomy-related data analysis, you're kind of just looking at data points, and there's always a greater meaning. But for me, there's no greater meaning than if I'm potentially like looking at a planet that could host life. When I'm looking at this light curve and I'm seeing these transit data points, but the underlying feeling that I'm could be looking at a planet with life on it is super interesting to me and fascinates me. So I would say in the next few years, ideally I want to find the next Earth. It's an ambitious goal. Mm-hmm. I'm currently doing research like that right now. So I'm planning on writing a couple papers for the spring, and then I'll continue that goal. We found my research group and myself. We found I guess you guys get a little sneak peek of this, but we found the first solar system analog, so the first exoplanet system that resembles our own solar system. Yeah, so that's already the first of its kind. So it just shows you what, again, modern technology and research tools can do for astronomy. So again, I just want to keep going with that and try and find that Earth that fits in that system. So.
Wow, absolutely. That's an incredible goal. And we really, truly hope that you accomplish it. So thank you so much for being here today, Michael.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great talking to you.
Of course. And with this, we're wrapping up episode 2 of our Spotlights show for the NCHS Courant. Make sure to tune in for our next episode. We've got more incredible stories coming your way. Thank you again.
Thank you.